Good evening. Tonight, we delve into a sinister tale. One that I know all too well. A tale of technical difficulties. Technical difficulties have plagued me and my colleagues for our entire lives. And just recently I've discovered that there is more to this story than meets the eye. These difficulties are caused by a certain creature. Something that we have decided to call Technodemons. These insidious creatures aren't perceivable by human senses. We can only confirm their existence by the actions they take and the effects that those actions cause. Join me tonight as we explore a known den of these demons, a place that has been under attack for as long as I can remember. That place is Mag's house. Hello, and welcome to the Two-Step Podcast. I'm Bag, and joining me as always is our lovely friend Mag.
No, I'm dead. I'm completely devoid.
He's been assaulted by the Technodemons.
Life and hope has evaded me.
So today, so we've been having some problems. Well, particularly Mag has been having some problems.
I've been having some problems. Right, it's all me, baby. I'm the one who gets all of the problems.
Let me fix one thing.
My house is haunted. My house is 100% fucking haunted, right? Have you ever been in one of those houses where like the halls drip of mold and stuff? Yeah.
I live in one of those houses, Mag. Come on.
Yeah, I live in one of those houses, right? My house is like basically like straight out of Twilight Zone, 100%. But like, not like actual Twilight Zone, because Twilight Zone, in my opinion, was pretty chill. It was like spooky, right? But it wasn't like really violent. Nah, this is like violent Twilight. This is like Black Mirror version. That's my house. It's fun. All kinds of fun.
Basically, Mag has been having some issues repeatedly now. The demons in his life are just assaulting him, seemingly on a like, I don't know. Let me turn my. Actually, I need to turn my voice down just a little bit.
Monthly basis at the very least.
Yeah, it seems like it's pretty much monthly. And God, dude, when we need to just like I've been saying this for a while, but eventually we need to just do a fundraiser just to like get Mag new equipment. Just one of these days. Equipment to fight the Technodemons, that is. Not like a computer setup or anything like that, you know.
Like I need like a cross. I need a holy cross, right? And I need a Bible. And I need a fucking just all of the things. I need holy water. People, please send me all of the holy water that you can. I need them to fight the Technodemons. I have to fight the beasts! I will look into the abyss, and I will melt it from the inside!
Wait. Do I still have Slay the Spire up? Oh, because I was playing League yesterday. I do still have Slay the Spire up from back then. The game is still open, so hey guys, guess what? You're gonna see the fucking Slay the Spire that's been open on my computer for like 3 days. Anyways,
Interesting.
Yeah, right. Anyways, you can make holy water by boiling the hell out of it. True. So anyways, there's a couple things that we are going to talk about today, besides the fact that Mag has been assaulted.
We don't have to talk about stuff at the moment, primarily because there's not that many actual individual topics. We're probably going to be drawing out the 3 topics that we have massively, like we normally do. We're
going to be doing like a lot of reminiscing and a lot of just random stuff because straight up, like he said, there's just not a lot going on right now. Like, there really isn't. There's only one big announcement, which is probably going to be the majority of it, and that's Half-Life Alyx. And then the other stuff, the other topics that we really have, I mean, we've got that...
Yeah, I mean, November tends to be the biggest time in gaming, but it's passed. November has passed, right? April seems to be... March and April next year seem to be the really big part of gaming, right? And that's...
Yeah, we've got a little bit of news about Google Stadia. We've got some news about Pokemon Sword and Shield. Amazon is
Right.
going to be entering the cloud gaming business next year. That should be pretty interesting once it does happen.
We'll
and
see
then
about that.
and then we'll see. And then the Cyberpunk 2077 creators, CD Projekt Red, have kind of backstepped a little bit on something that they have said
we'll talk about
previously.
that. We'll talk about that as well. That's not an outrage moment for me yet.
Yeah, it's not for me either.
It's
but
not.
but yeah.
But it has the potential to be bad.
Yeah, so anyways, getting into it. Basically, Mag has been assaulted by Technodemons, and we're not even sure if we're going to be able to do Doomsday later today. If we don't do Doomsday... Go ahead.
Well, okay. To break the veil open here, right? The real thing is, my computer decides whenever I want to play specific games to crash, right? That's just what happens. It just completely fucking... Like, I get fucking multicolored monitors, right? Not even a blue screen, and then I have to like hit the reset button and restart my computer, right? I don't know if it's a power supply problem. We'll know about that soon because I have ordered a new power supply. But if it's not a power supply problem, it's probably a graphics card problem. And if it's a graphics card problem, then I'm really fucked, right? Not so much that I can't stream Doom because I have a backup card. I always have a backup card, but I won't necessarily. But it's not gonna be fun. Put it that way for me. Basically, it's gonna be like I'll still be able to play certain games with the card that I have, and I'll probably still be able to stream older games, particularly because of the games that I was gonna be streaming in the recent weeks, right, are really old, so it might be fine, but it's not gonna be enjoyable. Fucking, it's not gonna be ideal. It's just a lot of shit that's happening all at once, unfortunately. Like I'm just getting a lot of technical issues. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of technical issues just all at the same time, and it's just bleeding my bank account dry. It's terrible, right? And this wouldn't be nearly as big of an issue if it wasn't for the fact that I'm moving, right? In like 2 months, ideally, to a completely different city, right? To study. So I'm already trying to save most of my funds to fucking move into a new place, right? And now this shit's happening. Like, the computer is not the fucking top priority. Because it can't be.
It always picks the worst possible time to fuck you in the ass, basically, is how this kind of thing goes. But let's see here.
Bullshit.
So the big one that's on everybody's mind right now when it comes to gaming news is definitely the fact that we are getting a new Half-Life game. I think the main concern of most people is there's two of them. One, it's not Half-Life 3. It is not Half-Life 3. If you think that it's Half-Life 3, it's not Half-Life 3. This is a story that happens simultaneously to Half-Life 2, Episode 1 and 2, like all three of those. We don't really know the specifics there, but and the other thing is that I'm quite certain that it's going to be VR only. You will have to play it in VR.
It's VR only because the idea is it's designed from the ground up to be VR. Because here's the issue, right, with virtual reality games. If you don't make converting a normal game to VR works, right? And we've seen it done really well with specific games, from Skyrim to Subnautica to like Elite Dangerous. All of those games are normal PC console games that convert really well to virtual reality. But the reality here is that for VR to actually succeed, at least in my opinion, right? It needs to be more than that. It needs to have its own experience, and it needs to have games that can only work on virtual reality. Because reality is if a VR game could work just as good and be just as immersive an experience on any other platform, why would I bother buying it, right? Like, there's no point. If you're a gamer who's interested in Half-Life, chances are you either have a PC or you have a console, right? The idea, the proposition of buying a Valve Index or an Oculus Rift or a Vive or whatever, right, for an experience that isn't necessarily better and could potentially be worse if you suffer from like motion sickness issues and all that other crap, it's a hard to buy. And it's even worse because at the moment it's kind of out of people's price range, given that it's a relatively early tech. And so and keep in mind here, the point of Half-Life Alyx, right, isn't just to make a new Half-Life game. It's Valve doing what Valve do best, and that's trying to push forward what they think is going to be the next big thing in gaming. Valve really want VR to be big, and for
that's
Valve to
And that's a big thing that
Yeah.
Half-Life has always been their, like, baby to do that with. It's always been the thing that they've done. The big physics engine changes that you saw in the gaming market happen, that was because of Half-Life 2.
Now, to be fair, I think VR is a completely different beast than
Absolutely. Absolutely,
than the physics
completely
engine.
different.
I personally believe that Valve's push to VR is much more akin in terms of gambling and risk to Steam.
Yes.
Entirely. Because, I don't know what the age range of the people who watch our channels are. I don't know, right? But for me, I grew up when Steam wasn't a thing. It wasn't. And when Steam was first announced by Valve, Half-Life creators, right, as this concept of being a always online digital platform, and the idea that you had to pay, Half-Life 2, for instance, was going to be released on Steam. That meant you had to have an internet connection, an active internet connection to play it. And this was during a time where broadband, or ADSL, right, basically anything better than dial-up wasn't normal. That wasn't really a thing.
Yeah, it wasn't a normal thing. And I experienced that time as well, where dial-up was the mainstay of most people's houses.
There was a lot of backlash, just normal backlash, to Steam's existence. Because Valve did, in my opinion, quite naturally think of it as the future, right? They very accurately predicted that the world was going to go completely digital, and they wanted in on the pie, and they wanted in on it first. And regardless of what you think about Steam, and what you think about fucking, like, Gabe Newell entirely, like, that's a really visionary thing that they did at the time. Despite the fact that nobody wanted it, it wasn't perfect, it took a long time, it took about almost 5 years before third-party developers started going, maybe we should get on this as well, right? And it took about the same amount of time for people to actually want to use it. Keeping in mind, this is the reason why Steam sales were a thing. Steam sales were so fucking big because they needed to give you a reason to go on the platform. That was the whole point. That's an entirely different topic for it. We can talk about that and the downsides and the advantages on a completely different thing, but I'm not going to get into that. Suffice to say that Steam was a massive risk, and it's a massive risk that paid off massively.
It was definitely a huge payoff for him, and it's something that has, like Mag said, revolutionized how we play and interact with games. I mean, think nowadays. When's the last time you went to a GameStop to buy a video game? When's the last time you went to a physical store to buy a video game? Not you, Mac. I'm talking to the I'm talking to the normies, okay? The people who aren't going to buy Pokemon.
Sword and Shield.
Oh, we can talk about a little bit about that yesterday, but regardless of for like Nintendo games and things like that, like when's the last time that you went and you bought a PC game, an Xbox game, or a PS4 game?
Yeah, console games, unless you don't like going to GameStop, and for the record, I can completely agree that you would want to go to GameStop, because from all the things that I've heard about GameStop, and from the friends I've had who worked at GameStop, GameStop sounds like a fucking terrible place. Really corporate. Fucking shallow, stale place, right? But in New Zealand, we have EB Games. And for people in America, EB Games, the closest EB Games you're probably going to get is in Canada, right? It is technically nowadays owned by GameStop. But it never used to be. And in New Zealand, being a much smaller, like country, just in general, EB Games are still pretty good. But they are still like GameStop in the sense that they don't really sell games. They sell fucking Funko Pops, the things that should have died out the moment they were fucking spawned.
Yeah, and I recently went to the mall and walked around a couple of those kinds of stores. Like I walked around a GameStop, I walked around a few different stores, and it's actually insane how much physical merchandise has moved into those stores now, and how
Which is
little.
Probably a good thing, really. But they should have done it years ago.
And how little actual like games are there. So I think it's fine. And also
not to mention that so many of those games don't even have CDs, right?
Yeah.
They just have a Steam code, for instance.
That's the worst part, right? Is that you go into a store and you buy a game thinking that you're getting a physical cartridge, and you still aren't actually getting a physical cartridge. It's kind of silly. You
will never buy PC games at like GameStop or EB Games or anything like that because it's completely fucking worthless. You're just going to get a digital code. So it'd be better if you were going to do that, you'd be better off just looking for the cheapest fucking digital code instead online. Why would I spend fucking money? The only reason I go to EB Games, right, myself, is because Nintendo games, specifically, never go on sale. Ever. An Xbox game and a PlayStation game will go on sale digitally, right?
Eventually,
but Nintendo, eventually. But Nintendo don't do that. There are games that have been made 10 years ago that have never gone on sale. They continue to sell for the price that they originally sold at. Meaning, there is no
a little
fucking...
ridiculous.
Which, it's fucking ridiculous, but it means that there's no and they've gotten better for the record with the digital store on the Switch. It is better, but the point being is that if you're going to buy a game for a Nintendo console on release anyway, there is no real reason to buy digital unless you don't want to go into the store, you don't have one near you, or it's just, it's just, if it's more convenient to download the game, then great, go and do it. But for me, I actually want the physical cartridge, so if I'm going to pay the same price,
I think that's fine for like a console like the Switch, right? I think that's fine.
Yes.
Just because it's so hard to get quality download speed on it. It's hard. It doesn't have a lot of space on it. It's a smaller device just in general.
So that's probably the big. You would need to get a micro SD card as well. Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's the biggest thing when I think of the reason why you would want a physical cartridge for a Switch. But for a PC, like, I don't know about you guys, but like a 1 terabyte SSD nowadays is it's like not
cheap
that expensive.
as fuck.
The price in the last year or so went down a lot.
Oh man, the price of a current 1 terabyte SSD is the price that I paid for my 256 gigabyte.
Yeah, it's gone way
SSD.
down.
Like 3 or 4 years ago. It's insane. Another thing, other reason I think you would ever use physical stores like GameStop or whatever is if you don't have credit. This used to be a big thing for the record, right? You could go in there, you could buy like League of Legends fucking $10 fucking League of Legends card, whatever.
Sure.
Or any card for any fucking game you played. The only reason it's not as big of a thing nowadays is because debit cards are so fucking common. I don't know about America, but in New Zealand, debit cards weren't fucking nearly as common up until like 3 years ago, I want to say. And then they started being fucking insanely common. But before that, if you didn't have a debit card, right, because only one fucking bank in New Zealand, like, offered them. Right? I've had mine for years, for instance. But if you weren't a part of that bank, you didn't have anything. So if you didn't have a debit card, and you don't have a credit card because you weren't 18, for instance, then the idea of you being able to spend money in something like League to buy microtransactions, for instance, is kind of impossible. For the record, though, I don't encourage going to a store and buying fucking $10 gift card voucher things for microtransactions. It's a terrible fucking practice. And
yeah, I agree.
It. I'm just saying that's a reason why the stores kind of had a thing going. It was a thing that they had.
And debit cards have been a huge thing here for many, many, many years now.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. They've been probably well over... I think I got a debit card... I think I got a debit card like long time ago. Almost 10 years ago.
I got mine. I got mine. Well, to put it in perspective, when I got mine, I was 17. What that means is I actually had to get my grandmother, because she was she was the closest of, like legal guardian that could do it. I had to get my grandmother to sign for mine. That's how long ago it was for me, right? And keeping in mind, that's 11 years ago now for me.
Yeah, something like
right?
that.
So, and it was only one bank. Again, I did it because I played WoW. I had to get it, right? Because I didn't want to go into fucking EB Games buying fucking WoW cards every fucking month. That's terrible, right?
Yeah, right.
So that is the reason I got a debit card, so I could pay for World of Warcraft as a 17-year-old, because I had my own money.
Hell yeah.
I should be able to.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something to really think about, because like going back to the whole VR craze. Have you played a VR game, Meg? Like experienced it physically?
I haven't played it, but I haven't played a game. That's the thing. I've experienced VR movies, I guess, and they're fucking amazing. So I can only imagine games. I really like VR. All the demos that I've ever experienced with VR were early VR though. We're talking like, early development fucking Oculus Rift VR. That's my only experience of it. And I thought it was amazing fucking then when I tried it. Right? Like 7 years ago or some shit. So I've tried it better now as far as I'm concerned.
I've tried it in recent years, and that's cool, Otto. I'm glad there's at least one person who's done it in the chat. The thing about VR, so I bought the Oculus, right? And I had some issues with it, so I returned it and I bought the Vive, as they want to call it, the Vive.
Is that
whatever?
I call it the Vive.
Yeah, I don't know why they want to call it the Vive. But I tried both of them. They both had their pros and cons, but there's a lot of things that happen with VR games that only happen when you do them for extended periods of time. Like there's weird effects that your body gets. Like one thing, this only happened to me when I was using the Oculus, right? When I was using the Vive, I didn't actually have this problem. But what happens is with the Oculus, in a lot of the base games that come with it, like before you start playing like real, like actual VR games, you have the two controllers and you hold them in your hands and you have buttons and they kind of mimic you opening and closing your hands in the VR world, right? So if you press a button with your, say it's like your middle finger, it'll close the two top fingers on your hand. If you press a button with your thumb, it closes your hand into a fist, right?
Yeah.
What ends up happening is that if the sensors are off, even by the slightest amount, there's this feeling that you get when you're in VR where it starts to feel like the hands inside of VR are your actual hands, and you get this kind of like phantom thing, which normally isn't a big deal. I would say that's a pretty big immersion thing. However, if your sensors are slightly off, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The hands in VR are slightly off as well from where your hands really are. So if you're in VR for many hours, I played it for like 6 hours straight, I think, right?
Okay.
And my hands ended up being slightly off. I came out of VR.
So it's like
my hands did not feel real.
It's a dissociative syndrome effect, right? Yeah, where you start disassociating certain emotions and feelings with other ones. Yeah, that's the biggest problem I have. It's not a thing, and unfortunately, I think that will actually be one of the biggest hurdles. Because the reality is, people are going to want to spend, right? Like, people are going to want to spend hours inside VR. Of course they are. When Kojima makes his first VR game, he's going to have a 6-hour movie. How else am I going to fucking not stay in there for 6 hours and watch it? Come on!
Yeah, right. Think about that as well, real quick as an interjection. Think about how much more difficult narrative-based VR games are going to be. Because think about the situation where, like, you control the camera at all times in VR, right? You have to.
So you mean from, like, a design perspective?
Yes, because they're going to have to design it to force you to look at the areas that they want you to look at without making you do it. It's going to have to be fluid. So that's going to be pretty difficult. I think someone like Kojima could do it very well, but like that's going to be a big hurdle because you really got to think like you can't. They'll be able to use 3D sound to do it, which will help as well. Like, you know, a sound will happen over behind them, and then you look over and there's someone shouting at you from that side. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, but when you're doing like big things with little sound, it's like it's probably going to have a lot of complications. But there are a lot of weird problems with VR, right? One of the issues is people who need glasses. This particularly only happens to people who are farsighted. So the issue is that if you're nearsighted, it's kind of more difficult for you to see, or it's easier for you to see because they can kind of just adjust and there's a little slider.
Oh, yeah. So but I would be alright. Yeah,
but if you're farsighted, it's more difficult because you need to be wearing your glasses to be able to actually even see the images that are in there.
Yeah.
Because your eye can't focus it right. You can get custom ordered VR that have your prescription in the goggles, apparently, but
that sounds expensive as shit.
Good luck with that, yeah.
You know how much it costs for my prescription to begin with?
A lot, probably.
It's way too much, yeah. Like, fuck me. It's like fucking $400.
And like Otto said, you can wear your glasses, and they are made so that you can wear glasses, but it's much less comfortable, and it probably doesn't feel very good.
It's funny to me that that's not a problem that that should be the first thing that they ever fixed. For the simple reason that a lot of gamers, right, fucking don't wear, like, this is one of those things where you think John Carmack was working on the team at Oculus. He wears fucking glasses. I get it. He doesn't have to actually ever wear the thing to test his coding. Sure. But you would think that if half the team that you're working with is wearing fucking glasses and nobody decides, hey, this fucking thing sucks for people who wear glasses. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
How the fuck do you
Otto was saying that he gets sore after you wear it for a long period of time with the glasses on, with it pressing against your temples.
Well, because, it's like fucking headphones that are too small and they don't wrap around your glasses. Like my headphones that I wear, that I'm wearing on stream right now, right, are fucking amazing because they don't do that. But my previous headphones sucked ass. Like, I can wear these headphones for long hours at a time, and the only discomfort I get is just discomfort from wearing headphones for way too fucking long, because you just shouldn't do that. But it's a technical. Well, everyone's gonna die bag eventually.
Yeah,
Some sooner than others, unfortunately.
I'm gonna die in the game instead of real life, though. Feels bad, man. Anyways, yeah, so those were some of the like issues that I had with VR just in general. Yeah, like it's not as advanced as it might seem for a very normal person with no health issues. Oh, and I would get headaches occasionally after long periods of time because the thing that people don't realize about the VR thing is it's not just an image in front of your eye. Like, it's not just gonna burn your retinas out, right? Like, that's not how it's designed. It's a big, thick lens that looks at a screen that's far away, and the screens are designed to make it so that when you're looking through that lens, when you're in VR, you get a sense of depth, right? So your eye has to adjust as you're in VR. It opens and contracts naturally like it would on anything else. So like if I look at my camera that's right here in front of me, you know, my pupils change as to when I'm looking behind the camera at the wall over there. Same thing happens in VR. So you get this kind of weird fatigue that happens because of the constant shift that you get. It would be like the same as if you were like outside running in like a forest or something like that, and you were constantly trying to make sure that you don't run into stuff. You just get this sense of mental fatigue, of your eyes start to hurt and your head starts to hurt. It's just one of those things, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of hurdles with VR that they're going to have to overcome, and I'm really interested to see the Valve take on it. Yeah,
with regards to Half-Life Alyx, Half-Life Alyx, from what we've seen, looks really fucking good, but I'm not convinced myself with what we've seen that it is a better experience on VR. That is to say that it is being designed on VR for VR only for the express purposes that Valve want to push VR forward. And the reality is that to push VR forward as a new tech, somebody has to lead the charge. And who better than basically one of the richest companies in gaming? Valve have the staff, they have the money, they have the ability to do it, and better, they're not constrained by shareholder whims because they're a private company, right? So they are, as much as I don't think Valve are perfect. I think they have flaws. I've probably been one of the biggest Valve haters in fucking just not
I would say so, yeah.
times, but in years, right? I have my own personal beef with Valve in a lot of ways, right? But the reality here is that for the purposes of VR and pushing VR forward as a technology, I do think Valve are the best for the job. Also keeping in mind that they're not just doing it on their own, they are still technically working with HTC with regards to even the Valve Index. But as a Half-Life game, I think if you're a Half-Life fan and you want a Half-Life game, this is probably not the good news for you. Because, I mean, Half-Life fans, getting Valve, it looks cool, right? But it doesn't look like it needs to be on VR at all. And the reality is, if you're a Half-Life fan, you've probably been waiting over 10 fucking years for a new Half-Life game, and then it comes on a console that the majority of people don't have. I can't even get a Valve Index. I don't ship them to New Zealand. So,
and they're also a fucking bajillion dollars, dude. The Valve Index is the most expensive out of all of them.
It is, but even if you compare the Oculus, that still cost me like fucking 25% more to get it for me in New Zealand than it would anywhere else. So get fucked, basically. Yeah, it's
I'm
like,
actually dead. But yeah, I wanted to talk about that
great.
too.
It looks interesting, but it's expensive.
Is that the Oculus is like the Facebook one, right? It's the cheapest one. The Vive is the next one up. There's actually there's actually like an in-between one that's supposed to be pretty good, made by Samsung. That's the Windows like
what, Sony?
Something like that.
Both
but it's like
Microsoft and Sony are also working on their own, but I don't.
It's like it's supposed to be like a pretty good one, but not, you know, like $900 like the Valve Index one is, which it's insane how expensive the Valve Index one. And there's even a higher tier one of the Valve Index. It's like $2,000. So if you got a lot of fucking money and you really want a nice one, I cannot recommend yet to buy it because I really don't think it's there yet, right? Like, I think it's very, very, very close. I don't think VR is there yet. I think in the next 3 or 4 years, maybe. Because one thing I did hear...
Put it this way. If you want to be an early adopter and you don't mind spending your money on what is on subpar products, but you want to just support the industry, you know, the tech, right? Then you're gonna have to shell out money anyway. So if that's your prerogative, then go forward. The reality here is that we need early adopters. People were gonna go, oh, don't pre-order this, don't do that, it's bad, you got to wait on it. And yes, that's the smart option for basically 90% of people, right? But the reality is that if you don't have early adopters funding the start of a new tech, right, then it just dies because it's not commercially active. And if it's not commercially viable, nobody's gonna fucking do it. That's why we don't have gas made out of water.
What was
How do
I
you
gonna
sell
say?
gas made out of water?
I was gonna say something.
Everyone can get it.
What was I gonna say, Mag? Tell me what I was gonna say. Get into my brain and tell me what I was gonna say. Words. Okay, good.
I am fucking emanating my spiritual thoughts into your brain, and now you are going to talk about stuff.
Okay, calm down. Don't emanate any spiritual forces into me, please. But yeah. So the actual story,
not the Technodemons.
The story of Alex, right? Of Half-Life Alex. We've already kind of gotten leaked what is supposedly the Half-Life 3 story. I can't really say that that's ever been confirmed. Valve will never say that they confirmed it.
It's never been confirmed, but it was made by one of the lead writers. So.
Yeah, it was made by one of the lead writers of the Half-Life 2
I'd also like
stories.
to note that it didn't actually end anything, right? It didn't.
Nothing really happened.
If you haven't read Epistle 3, all you need to know about the fucking basic concept of the storyline, other than the timey-wimey bullshit that is the Borealis, all you need to know is that basically Gordon gets replaced by G-Man for Alex. Pretty much. Right? And we know that because we that's very heavily insinuated anyways in the end of Half-Life 2, Episode 2. Mm-hmm. The idea being is that the Vortigaunt's effectively free Half-Life from, I guess, his forced indentured, and now fucking Alex is screwed. But what's never ever fucking... The biggest problem that was never answered with the Half-Life storyline, in my opinion, was, okay, it makes sense that G-Man would want Alex, because she's just proven herself just as capable as Gordon. Okay, fine, but why wouldn't you just have both? Why would you pick one? Not to mention that he says in Half-Life 2, right, that he's gotten many offers for Gordon's contract, whatever. Okay, why wouldn't you just hand him off to one of them then? It makes no sense. And you want to know why it makes no sense? Because, hot take, they never fucking planned it to make sense. Because they just fucking pulled it out of their ass. The whole fucking G-Man story in the end of Half-Life 1 was just supposed to be mysterious. It wasn't supposed to go anywhere. Then the game blew the fuck up and everyone went, oh wow, that's fucking cool. And fucking Gabe's sitting in his office going, fuck! Ah! Now I have to make another one!
Dude, the G-Man in the Alex trailer honestly looks perfect. Like, he really does look fucking good.
Bizarre. He looks younger.
He's not really like an actual...
G-Man, so who gives a shit?
He's not a real entity, right? He's supposedly just some fucking,
as
like...
far as we know,
force of nature, so I think
Who cares?
it's fine.
He looks fucking amazing, okay?
Yeah, he looks pretty good.
The graphics look fucking good.
I mean, that's always been the thing about Valve, is that when they do decide to do something, they generally do it very well. Oh, yeah, they go
all out. 100%.
Except for card games. But...
yeah, unfortunate. Basically, it's like they announced it, right? It's like they announced it, heard everyone's disappointment at the announcement, and then they just cashed out from there. They're like, fuck, what have we done?
Yep.
And then they just decided not to bother, right? But they had to do it because... Fuck it, they already spent fucking 2 years of fucking shit.
I remember what I was going to say. The story of Half-Life Alex is, it takes place sometime in between the start of Episode 2 and the end, or the start of Half-Life 2 and the end of Episode 2. It takes place sometime in there and may go past that. Yeah. We don't know.
Because Eli Vance
Eli Vance is in it.
Which, if you've ever played Half-Life 2, right, spoiler alert, you know makes no sense. But the rip, I want to say, rip fucking Eli Vance, because it's not the original voice actor.
Yeah, his voice actor did die, and although the new voice actor does sound very, very like him, his voice, like quality, tenor or whatever, sounds very like him. His mannerisms are not the same. It's not even close.
It's kind of like Claptrap, right, in Borderlands 3. Claptrap in Borderlands 3 is very different, but not so different that it actually distracts from the character, because it sounds very similar. But as I remember you telling me this, and I agree, right? He actually sounds better because he sounds more excitable.
Yeah, it's a very...
to be fair, that could just be because in Borderlands 2 he's super depressed, and in Borderlands 3 he's no longer as depressed.
Yeah, it's like, the thing about Claptrap was just that he had this quality to his voice where it was kind of just like he was a one-trick pony, and he just always sounded the same. And now in Borderlands 3, he has different emotions and he sounds different at different times.
To be fair, They do Claptrap really dirty. I'm not going to spoil anything. All I can tell you is that Claptrap is just a routine punching bag, and it gets very old, and it just makes you feel really bad for it. And fuck you, Gearbox, for fucking ruining Claptrap's life. And the rest of the story of that game.
I don't know. I don't know anything about it, so.
Fucking garbage game, and I fucking hate it. 10 out of 10. IGN.
But anyways, yeah, so the story is basically just following Alex and whatever she does while Gordon is off doing his thing, right? Because you don't really see Alex for a lot of the game. There's like a big stretch through most of Half-Life 2 where you just don't see her.
Yes, and keeping in mind that at the end of Half-Life fucking 2, she goes into a coma and the Vortigaunt's are trying to help her.
Yeah, that's around when it starts to put her back into the story, because she's a big part of episode 1 and 2. She's a huge part of those. She's present for pretty much the entirety of episode 1.
Well, again,
yeah?
Not all of episode 1, because again, they got to revive her. That's the whole point, right?
Well, I more so mean she's integral to the story.
Yeah, okay. No, yeah, I get you. But the point being is that it's got to be set. I would say it's set. I don't know when exactly.
Well, it could be during that time. I mean, she's incapacitated, but what if they do like a dream sequence or something during that? I mean, I feel like there's ways to go about that.
That depends on the timeline. It depends on the exact point in the timeline, and I don't know the
well,
exact point in the timeline.
Well, haven't we?
Didn't
we hear Eli Vance say his line from the end of episode 2 in the trailer?
Yeah, well, I think so. Yeah. The thing is, I originally thought it was when they were at fucking. I thought it was a spin-off. And you were seeing it from Gordon's side you were seeing it from Alex's side when Gordon was going through Nova Prospect and trying to save Eli. That's what I thought it was. And it was only until until I rewatched the fucking trailer and think, oh wait, no, it's a little further than that.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a tad. It's got Reese Darby in it.
Yeah.
Which, by the way,
it's got a lot of interesting people in it. Which that seems to be just that just seems to be a thing nowadays. So it feels like they're not really making custom characters in games anymore. I feel like what a lot of places are doing now is they're just using like there's software that you can do and like setups that you can get where you can just import a human into a game, right? Like you can just put them into the game. And it's very, very becoming very common because I think it's much easier to copy someone's head and likeness and face and body. Much easier to do that than create like a whatever character. And basically every human character from Jedi Fallen Order, they're all fucking real people, including the main character.
You know what? I think that's what they did with Control. Because every character in Control, in the Control game by Remedy, look like...
Those looked weird, though. They looked off.
You know why they looked... Yeah, you know, the problem is that it was Uncanny Valley territory, where they looked good, but not perfect. Yeah, and it was really off-putting, because you'd watch and go, wait, it looks really good. Like, the graphics are really good, but it doesn't look...
Well, like, the main character looked very realistic, but all of the other characters, they had that weird, just like...
It's hard to tell though because of Control is basically one big SCP reference. It's hard to tell if that was if that's a stylistic choice because SCP, or if it's an actual crop technology. You don't know, right? That could be a stylistic choice just to fuck with you completely. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, that's the excuse I would use if I was them though.
I sure as fuck don't. But yeah. So moving on a little bit, because I think we got pretty much as much out of Alex as we possibly can at this point.
40 minutes of just Alex. Easy.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about VR too, so it's fine. A couple things about Google Stadia here. The launch did not go well. Is anybody surprised? Are you surprised, Mag?
It's not just that it didn't go well, though. It's that they literally went back on so many of the promises that they said that they were going to do, right? That's the real problem here.
And supposedly they took down the Destiny servers.
Yeah, they did actually. I don't know how that happened, but Star, friend of the fucking channel, right, was saying he was telling me that he wanted to play Destiny 2, but he couldn't because the servers were down. And apparently because of Stadium, like, oh yeah, I heard that. It's fucking dumb. I'm gonna bring up this article in a second, though. This,
real quick,
their response.
For anybody who doesn't know what Google Stadia is, it's basically another like games as a service kind of thing, like playing video games remotely on your computer or on your TV or on your anywhere.
It's live streaming video games, kind of like how that Sony one they did years ago was. And the thing about Stadia that makes it interesting is that you have to pay for the games that you want to play on Stadia. Now, Stadia is free for 1080p, but it costs a monthly subscription if you want to play in 4K. And the biggest issues that have plagued Stadia currently is that it's not 4K, right? They were accused. So last week they were accused. Let's bring up this article here. Last week, a website called 9to5 Google accused Google of lying about the performance of Stadia games after it emerged key titles were not running in 4K resolution and 60 frames per second. Specifically, Digital Foundry did a bunch of tests, right? Digital Foundry is another website that do these kind of tests, right, on games, like performance tests. And they found that Destiny 2's, for instance, was 1080p, 30 FPS, scaled to 4K, 30 FPS, which is one, not what people paying a 4K subscription are paying for, and two, it makes it look fucking awful. Like, I should
it looks really bad.
It looked really blurry. But the worst part about this thing, right, was that on Twitter, somebody asked Phil Harrison, will all games on Google Stadia run at 4K and 60, right? And Phil said, yes, all games at launch support 4K. We designed Stadia to enable 4K 60 with appropriate TV and bandwidth. We want all games to play 4K 60, but sometimes for artistic reasons, a game is 4K 30, so Stadia always streams at 4K 60 via 2 times encoding. That means that it's not actually fucking streaming necessarily at 60. It's streaming at 30. Now, 2 points here I would like to point out. First, artistic reasons. Excuse me? There are no artistic reasons.
That's some legalese bullshit.
There is no artistic reasons for fucking a game to specifically run at a lower frame rate, alright? Ubisoft tried to convince people that 30 FPS was a cinematic experience. Do you know how that turned out? You know how it turned out for them, Google? It turned out the same way it's turning out for you. Like fucking shit. Because, like, unbeknownst to most people, apparently, gamers aren't that fucking stupid. Anybody who's actually interested in Google Stadia generally knows what fucking 4K is, or what 60 fucking frames per second is, right? Calling 30 FPS a cinematic experience because movies fucking play in 24. Yeah, but movies also don't fucking pivot the camera around fucking 50 miles an hour every fucking millisecond. That's kind of the difference, right? Like, a game is an interactive experience. If you've never played a game on 144 hertz, or right, with 144 plus FPS, right, you can be forgiven for not understanding how important, like, frames can be. But going from 30 to 60 is really fucking noticeable. Like, it's insanely noticeable. And it's the same as going from 60 to 140. The reality is that a higher fucking frame and a higher refresh rate are really noticeable in high interactive games, like a first-person shooter, like Destiny. Now, for the record, nobody really expected Red Dead Redemption 2 to run at 60 FPS 4K, because it's Red Dead Redemption 2. You could have the best... Stadia could be using the best hardware in the fucking world, and they're still not going to get 60 FPS 4K resolution because it's Red Dead Redemption 2. It uses some of the best fucking graphics on the market. It's just not going to happen. But Destiny 2, that's a fucking 3-year-old game almost. That absolutely should be able to run at 60 FPS 4K with the best hardware. And here's the thing. Stadia was marketed as having better than the best hardware. Well, that's clearly a lie, right? Like, it says in this article here, Destiny 2 renders at a native 1080p and is then upscaled to improve quality, but never reaches 4K. Well, for the record, you can't improve quality by upscaling something. That's not how it works, right? Have you guys ever gone into, like, Paint or Photoshop and you've just stretched out an image? That's not how that works. It doesn't get better quality. You can't, this isn't fucking CSI. Like, you can't
The only
just
thing that you
enhance
can
on an
really
image
do-
and it gets better.
Yeah, you can't quote unquote enhance it. All that you can really do is nowadays there's like software that an AI can take it and it can approximate what it thinks that image is supposed to be. And I mean, it's getting pretty accurate because AI is getting dangerously scary. But
that's not even. Oh, that actually, yeah. AI approximation of that stuff is pretty fucking good, but it's still not the greatest.
It's still not going to be
as good as doing it by hand.
Of course, and it's getting there, but like still, you're really selling yourself short if you think that it's going to happen. And Google is really doing a disservice here because there's a couple other things as well.
Well, no, I want to just before. Sorry, I really want to tell you this statement because this statement is fucking horrendous. So their statement was officially, Stadia streams at 4K and 60 FPS, and that includes all aspects of our graphics pipeline from game to screen. GPU, encoder, and Chromecast Ultra all outputting at 4K to 4K TVs with the appropriate internet connection. Okay, for starters, right? That's bullshit. We've already established that's a load of bullshit, right? Developers making Stadia games work hard to deliver the best streaming experience for every game. Like you see on all platforms, this includes a variety of techniques to achieve the best overall quality. We give developers the freedom of how to achieve the best image quality and frame rate on Stadia, and we are impressed with what they have been able to achieve for day one. Yeah, except that what they've been able to achieve for day one is basically half of what you promised would be able to be achieved by day one, so fuck you. And now, the worst part, we expect that many developers can, and in most cases will continue to improve their games on Stadia. And because Stadia lives in our data centers, developers are able to innovate quickly while delivering even better experiences directly to you without the need for game patches or downloads. So, I mean, here's the short end of the stick. This is what they've done. Basically, they've just thrown every single fucking developer who put their game on Stadia under the bus. That's what they're doing. They're basically saying, no, it's not Stadia that can't run at 4K. It's your game. It's the
developers that aren't making the game well enough.
It's the developers. The developers are not making it run on Stadia. It's like, but Stadia is just a fucking computer. Do you not know what? You're Google. You know what a cloud server computer is. You know what the cloud is? The cloud is just somebody else's computer in another building in fucking Norway. Or fucking Germany, or fucking anywhere in Europe, because that's basically where most of the data centers are, right? That's it. That's fucking all a fucking cloud server is. It's a fucking computer playing Destiny 2 and then streaming the fucking results to your fucking TV. Obviously, that has the Stadia part of it. The actual Stadia part of it is figuring out the inputs. Not just streaming it, but actually figuring out when you push a button on your controller, it does the shit that it's supposed to do. That's the whole technology that Google themselves. But it still uses a computer. They didn't put it on a fucking PlayStation in the middle of the fucking Google headquarters.
Yeah,
like,
and what their whole pitch was on how this was going to work is that basically they said that with their extreme rendering, they're going to make it so that they can render every possible outcome and then just feed you the image of whatever you ended up actually pressing, right? Which is bullshit.
I recall us having... Also, what about that episode where we said that they would have negative latency?
Yeah, so anyways, getting to the couple of things that that Google have basically done, right? So they said that so basically if you have a data cap, you can't use Google Stadia. It's an insane amount of data. It's using 100 megabytes, that's capital MB per minute.
It's about 15, to put it in perspective, it's about 15 megabits per second. Or to put it in another way, right? It's like the amount of data, right, that that 4K Google Stadia uses is equivalent to watching roughly 5 Twitch streams at the same time, on average. Because the majority of Twitch streamers stream between, 3 and 5 megabits per second. So that's like basically 3 to 5. That's like watching. So playing Google Stadia is like watching 3 to 5 streams all at once, right? That's a lot of. And for the record, if you have a data cap, and I know people who have data caps in both Australia and America, right? That's a lot. It doesn't seem like a hell of a lot, right? But it's a lot, especially given that Google Stadia, like YouTube, is compressed to shit. right? So it's always going to look garbage anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't look very good at all. And you have to realize that Google reuses a lot of their tech, right? You may think that Google is like making new stuff all of the time. Google are the people who run YouTube, so they're using a lot of the video tech and a lot of the compression techniques, a lot of the stuff that they've been using for years already on this kind of stuff. It's nothing new.
100% they should do that.
It's very obvious that you're just being fed a lie at this point, is really what it comes to. So a couple other... Go ahead and finish your thought.
About this, though, the worst part about it is that we knew, people like you and I knew about this for months. And now it's sad that people are now figuring this out. It's like, why though? You could have...
Because the thing about it is...
you could have used Google's good service to Google... You could have used Google's good service to search up about Google's bad service.
Like, I use a service called ShadowTech, right? And it's basically what Google is trying to be, but actually half decent. And the idea behind ShadowTech is that you actually have a physical computer remotely that is just stationed close to you, right? Like, that's the whole idea of ShadowTech, is they just have data centers all over the place, and you can choose a data center that's relatively close to you. It's only in certain places. And you just own a computer, right? That computer is connected directly to a data center, so the only problem that you would ever have is how much data going between you and that computer. Yeah. Everything that computer experiences is going to be faster than you'd ever be able to have, because they're literally plugged in to where the data comes from, right? That service works decently well. It's never going to be as good as having a computer in front of you, but it basically makes it feel like... Have you ever played an online game like, say, League of Legends with like 70 ping? It basically just feels like that, right?
No, I haven't.
I know you haven't,
I don't get that opportunity.
You have like 300 ping.
I want to.
But,
I want to play
but it basically just makes all games feel like that. Google, as far as I can tell, is not the same.
No, they don't do that. But and going on to this now, right? Let's lead on to the Amazon deciding to do their own thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go into next. I'm thinking
because
I'm thinking they will do it better than Google, just because they...
What? Because you think Twitch is better service than YouTube, for instance, as a technological baseline?
I think that... Well, yeah, yes, in an extent, in certain ways.
Well, and I agree for the record, but here's the question: is AWS, which is fucking good, right? Amazon Web Services is a very, very good and very powerful CDN, right? Yeah, sure. But the point being is they're good. They're everywhere. How much better over Google are they, though? Because Google's own CDN stuff, right, is still very good. They're both good as a CDN. That doesn't mean that they're going to be good, right? But we can't extrapolate how good their CDNs are in fucking live streaming, which is why we only have YouTube and Twitch to really compare. And YouTube is shit.
So the idea that I would have behind it is that Google has made so many mediocre things. Like, Google basically just throws anything at the wall, and if it sticks, it sticks, right? That's the way that Google's always been.
It's not even that, yeah. And the problem is that Google products tend to fail because they never think about how the product can be monetized.
Yes.
And it's terrible. We get that, oh, monetization, oh, it's evil, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but monetization is kind of a necessary evil, because if they don't have money coming in for the product that they're making, then they can't keep making the product. They can't sustain it. And the reality is that in business, if you have a product that requires all of your other sectors to sustain it, right, if it can't make profit on its own fucking two legs, then it's kind of not really worth continuing, right? It's you really, really want a product to be able to sustain itself, to make its own revenue, right? And many of Google's products don't, because they don't think about a way to monetize. But Amazon probably would actually think about how to do that. And for the record, I don't think there's a hard way to do that. I mean, subscription services, like, Google's already halfway there. It's just that they also decide to charge you $60 for the fucking games on top of it. So, okay.
Yeah, so the biggest thing about it, and what Mag was talking about, is pretty true. Like, people always think that, oh, well, like with the CD Projekt Red thing that's going on right now that I hinted on before, that people are like, oh, well, businesses wanting to make money is bad, we leave greed to other people. It's like, come on, dude. This is the real world. Anybody that's, like, not living under a rock, anybody that's not of the Star family is going to, like, realize that you need to make money to be successful in any kind of business or any kind of service or product, no matter what it is. If that service or that product isn't being funded by someone with money, then it needs to make some kind of money to exist. And people don't seem to get that. People don't seem to understand the fact that when you see...
for the record... Sorry, go ahead.
When you see like a business and they're doing things to make themselves money, right? Don't shit on them for trying to make money. Sure, you can shit on businesses that make like unsavory practices and like prey upon people, or try to make it so that if you spend more money, you'll get a better product, right? Like you'll spend, like, say, like in gaming, like where they have like pay-to-win features. Yeah, you can just not pay those people. That would be fine.
Bag and I, or at least I specifically, I hate a lot of video game practices, right? Over the recent years, I don't generally like microtransactions as a rule, right? I just don't care for them. I don't like it when fucking you get companies like Electronic Arts or Google just flat out lying to you about how they're monetizing their games. And those are the kind of things that we're going to fucking like completely fucking rip apart. Those are the things that if a company, that's why we're saying Google Stadia and fuck them, because they're Google clearly lying about what Stadia offers. It's not about them making money or needing to make money. We get that. Point being here is that if you're going to be making money, at least be upfront with how you're doing it and why you're doing it. And why you're doing it is not to give us a sense of pride and accomplishment. Why you're doing it is because you want to make money, because you want to make money. The biggest, like the dissonance between what a company wants and what a gamer wants often comes from the fact is that I personally, for instance, think that certain companies are doing things that they don't need to do just to make more money than they actually need to. Case in point, fucking Grand Theft Auto Online shark cards. Did fucking Rockstar need to make that much money? It's like, because think about it. People always go, oh, well, you know, video games are really expensive. Fucking Grand Theft Auto 5 costs like $500 million to be put in development. And you're right. Guess what, though? They made all of that money back plus profit just on day one sales. So, I don't think shark cards were fucking necessary for them. 100% unnecessary, right? And I'd like to point out that with things like shark cards and GTA Online, all of the money that they got from GTA Online was just fucking put back into GTA Online and giving you more things to spend money on. So,
yeah, so that's honestly the crux of the problem for me.
That's the shitty stuff that we would talk about. But with
is
regards
that
to like the
I think that
stuff,
anyone will tell you that having more money is obviously better, right? Like I think that anyone will say having more money is obviously better. The thing about it is, is what the people making the money do with that money. So
how is it being used?
Yeah, so like someone, for example, that said something along this lines was Steve Irwin. He said, I love money. I can't get enough of it because I take that money and I put it back into research, into, buying land for conservation, buying that kind of thing. That's great. I think Steve Irwin was very, very intelligent. A lot of people think he's just some dumb Aussie that was running around and fucking doing like catching animals and doing whatever. A lot of people think but
here's another one that may be much more relatable to Americans. Bob Ross.
Sure.
Bob Ross was extremely shrewd, very ruthless businessman. Everyone who's ever worked with Bob Ross on a corporate level has said that he was very ruthless. He planned everything meticulously. That doesn't mean he was an asshole. It means he was a planner, right? He had a strategy for how to make his money and what he was going to use it on. And people like Bob Ross and Steve Irwin were very good at making money. It's just that they spent some of that money on not just improving themselves, but on actually improving whatever they were doing. In Steve Irwin's case, that was conservation. And he fucking gave his life, literally, for conservation, right? But that's the kind of thing that a lot of game studios like Electronic Arts or Ubisoft or Activision, they don't necessarily do. They don't put back in as much as they take out. Or if they're spending the money developing practices that aren't good. So, and this comes from the fact that recently CD Projekt Red recently announced multiplayer is going to be a thing. It's not that they recently announced that, right? We knew for a long time that Cyberpunk 2077 was going to have multiplayer, primarily because fans bitched really, really loudly, saying they wanted multiplayer. So,
as everyone does,
decided, okay. Well, yeah, sure, we want multiplayer, but we don't even know how it's going to work. It's not coming out on release because it was halfway through development. CD Projekt Red decided, okay, yeah, we'll give you multiplayer. Fine, whatever. the thing about that though is that it was never intended for it to be multiplayer, and that multiplayer, that all the development for that multiplayer kind of needs to be funded. So they would have set aside money, like funding, for the actual single player campaign, but they might not have set aside the same amount of money for multiplayer because they weren't intending to make multiplayer. So now that they are making multiplayer, they are trying to figure out ways of monetizing it. And the reality here is, and I agree with this quote, they are ultimately going to try and figure out a way to monetize Cyberpunk 2077's multiplayer without calling it without calling it microtransactions, because they have been adamantly against microtransactions. It's a massive part of Cyberpunk 2077's marketing. And to go back on that even slightly does make them look like massive hypocrites. So I'm not against them trying to look at ways to monetize. This is why like Bag and I aren't too concerned about it, because the reality is that if they are making a multiplayer game that they intend to support with free updates for longer than a month, which is what most fucking multiplayer games do these days, right?
Generally they do. At least about a year.
Yeah. Then they need to have a steady flow of money to maintain the servers, to maintain the fucking crew that they need to support them, to maintain constant updates, right? All that stuff costs money, right? Just like how your house, your mortgage, or your rent, or your fucking shopping, costs money.
They just weren't ready for the fact that people really desperately wanted multiplayer. They were just going to tell them no.
They should have just told them no, frankly.
I agree.
In my opinion. They should have just told them no. But the reality here is that now that they've decided to do it, they can't really back out because that will make them look worse. And so they need to figure out a way to monetize it. And
they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. We'll see what happens.
Probably be microtransactions. But as long as those don't affect single player in any way, I don't fucking care.
Yeah, I don't care either. I don't give a shit about multiplayer. Like on Grand Theft Auto 5, for example, the main thing that people do in Grand Theft Auto 5 now is do this weird RP shit. So like, I mean,
it's cool, by the way.
Yeah, I haven't like looked into it almost at all, but like.
But I wouldn't play. I've played multiplayer, and GTA Online is quite fun, but it's very grindy to actually unlock anything. So therefore, I just kind of cashed out because fuck it.
But yeah, that's
the amount of effort.
That's gonna be our hour. That's pretty much the end of our topics, anyways. We managed to get the full hour out of literally almost nothing, as we normally are able to. So yeah, that's pretty much going to be it. One thing to look forward to, guys, for anyone that wants more in-depth information about the podcast, sometime soon, TM, we will be opening up the Discord for the podcast itself. So
you know what?
I don't know when that's going to be. Sometime between now and next week's episode, there will be the official Discord for that.
It was going to be this week.
Yeah.
But then we realized, oh wait, we don't have any of the channels that we need to. We don't have any like actual voice channels. We don't have any actual like text channels. We don't have any like rules. Basically, we have all the current Discord server is set up just for us to plan stuff, and that was it, right? And then we're like, oh yeah, let's release it on like the 10th or 11th episode, and it's like, oh wait, fuck.
So you're
it's not ready.
Some things that you're going to be able to see on the Discord is for anybody who is like a supporter of the channel, basically, of the podcast itself. You're going to get some like more in-depth and early information about what we're going to be talking about, the things that we do. Like you'll see like me and Mag doing some like little banter and shit about whatever we're going to be talking about on the next podcast.
Oh yeah, so
we'll post links and stuff.
We have a whole fucking tab, for like podcast materials, and that's where our sources, our sources are, because we don't just pull this out of thin air, right? We talk about shit that we've actually heard about, usually on news sites.
Like as much as it might seem like we're just winging it, we actually do a decent amount of work, like to get all of this stuff together.
That's something that I may actually end up doing in the future though, and start posting sources on the YouTube videos for all the
that would be fun
for all the topics we talk about, just because I think they deserve all these news articles that we give, right? They deserve to be looked at as well, right? We just fucking present that information in a way less boring way.
That's gonna be it, guys. So thanks for watching. By the time you guys probably see this video, if you're watching the video, the Discord should be up. It'll be a couple days from when it was actually made, so go ahead and join that. Link should be down below. Besides that, you can find our Twitters and all the other information either down below the video if you're on YouTube, or in the biography on Spotify and SoundCloud. But besides that, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we will see you guys next week.